So, John, nice
Well,
to meet you. It's a pleasure.
likewise.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk today at South by. So let's get started. We'll start pretty kind of broad and then kind of narrow it down from there. From your perspective, and this is not just necessarily from an AT&T perspective, but just overall brands challenge, if you will. We're seeing the advertising landscape evolve quite a bit. So what kind of trends have you seen, and how do you think brands need to kind of respond to those trends?
Yeah, my point of view, which would be how I'll answer all of these, is just us talking here. It's you and I. Is the industry, the change that's really being experienced is something that you and I and anybody else that we sit and talking to really feels,
Hmm.
and that is just this incredible oversaturation of messages.
Yeah.
It's so much so that we don't even think about it. It's just part of the world around us. And it's not just walking down the street, but it's on every piece of technology and
Hmm.
everywhere we are.
Yeah.
Right? If you're watching some content, whether that's streamed or anywhere else, you hit pause and you get a pause ad.
Yes.
There's nowhere it's not happening, or even just the products that we use around our home. So anyway, there's so much of that. And as people begin to, that just is part of the filter, it's part of the noise in our life.
Yeah.
What's happening,
Hmm.
or what has happened, this is not necessarily new, but it's more and more pronounced, is the people that as a brand you want to influence, or hopefully get them to encourage some sort of action to purchase whatever it is that you're selling. It becomes harder and harder,
Yeah.
because we are so good as human beings as filtering out and ignoring the things that aren't relevant to us.
Yeah.
And when I'm on social media, it's what I want to see that's relevant to me.
Mhm.
And I almost, without even seeing something, know that an ad is coming next, and it's just whoop
Yeah.
and gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I can certainly relate to that. It can be a little bit overwhelming, and just as a marketer, I think uh, it gets challenging in terms of where to make decisions from an investment standpoint, from a measurability standpoint. There's so many touch points. So how are you kind of valuing each one of those touch points along the way? So I get it. Yeah. So I guess to build on that a little bit. So from an AT&T perspective, um, clearly a lot of brand equity, long history. So in this changing, evolving world, how do you kind of maintain that legacy, if you will, but also break through, have people stop with, break through with these modern audiences that are over inundated with all these things all the time.
Yeah. A brand that is stagnant, that stays respecting its heritage,
Hmm.
uh, doesn't last.
Hmm.
You don't want to be the Kodak,
Hmm.
right? That stayed where they were and then tried to evolve too
Yep.
quickly, but they missed the opportunity to be relevant.
Yeah.
And I never worked there. Just an example. But you have to adapt and change, and particularly at a brand like ours, or take beverage brands or some food brands, or any brand where the goal is really mass,
Yeah.
meaning that to hit your continual growth trajectory, you've got to have just this incredible amount of penetration across every segment. The challenge there is, in doing that, is increasingly in our world, you have to be more and more relevant to individuals, groups than ever before, or that thumb continues to scroll. Our filter just filters that out. So you've been around for a few years, like we have, and next year will be our 150th
Wow.
anniversary.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
But we don't sell telegraph services
Yeah.
anymore.
Good point.
We're on like the leading edge of
Yeah.
technology, and we're
Connectivity.
building the
Yeah.
infrastructure before the technology shows up in people's in people's hands. And so you have to continue evolving.
Yeah. 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 You're exactly right. It's, you really need to stay culturally relevant. You kind of have to identify those subcultures within that and address it specifically to them. So, it's an interesting time. Like, I guess, like, again, kind of like trying to like balance, um, again, that like tradition and legacy. How do you kind of integrate more innovation, be innovate, also be a leader from an innovation standpoint? Like you talked about, like I think the back end stuff, what you guys are doing to prepare for the present and the future, but like as a marketer, um, how do you get, how do you continue to be innovation while still having that foundation?
Yeah, so I think the foundation is something that, in our case, having been around for a few years,
Yeah.
You have a good sense of what is working on the back end. From a marketing perspective, that's different. Like trends come and go quickly. And sometimes brands could live or die on have they selected the right thing. My cheat code in my entire career, and I call it a cheat code because sometimes I've used it to cheat, is having a perspective from a customer.
Okay.
And sometimes I will admit I've walked into places sometimes and my focus group was a focus group of one.
Right.
And the other times it's been, significant research. But even beginning with a focus group of one is better than saying, oh, here's my brand and here's how we think about it. And this is what I like. And now go put that out in the world. And I want you to be successful on this budget on this time. And here are the things you want to talk about. Like any marketer, probably every marketer has been in situations like that.
Yeah.
Where like, yep, I will go and do that. We do the, yes, I'm here, sir. I will go move on forward. But without being rooted in a clear customer insight, it just doesn't work. And that feels like maybe a little bit of too high a platitude or, to talk about, but it doesn't matter whether you are, a brand that wants to reach 90% of the adult population, or whether you're like, I am focused on Gen Z and I have this new product that I want to sell there, and so my foundation is going to be on TikTok and with creators, etc. It still works the same way. In our case, we just happen to have a lot of segments that we are servicing. Right. Or that we would hope would buy our products and services. Yeah. And even us and other big brands that may have bigger budgets than some others, you still have to prioritize and make some clear choices.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, this one could be kind of a heavier question, I guess, but maybe heavy is not the right term, but there's a lot behind it. But I guess maybe from like more of like a high level standpoint, how are you leveraging technology and data to ultimately deliver, personalized experiences, but also impactful advertising experiences?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm not going to use the buzzword that everyone's using. There's lots of buzzwords that could be used. From a back end and planning perspective, the bar for us is, can I scale it? And that might be there's, I think, two ways of looking at it. One, can I really scale my reach? And then creatively, like, how far can I expand the message in order to be relevant to that size of audience? And I can come back and talk about that. The other way is really looking and saying, hey, we can scale here, or the sales target runs across all of these different segments. But from a messaging perspective, from a creative perspective, where I spend the majority of my time, is there some common narrative, some common thread that I can pull through that remains relevant while really visually speaking to a few of those segments.
Yeah.
And for us, one of the things that I've spent and my colleagues spend a lot of time on is with small business. We've tried for years and had success at various times in other areas, starting with big business, and our sales teams love that support and approach because it helps them go and land these big deals. And we work with lots of big companies and do custom solutions for them. It's great. It's important work, like very, very important customers, and we value that. But when we go and tell the aspirational human stories of an individual owner and founder, and the idea and the passion and the fact that they're the CEO, the CFO, the janitor, and the everything, that resonates really, really broadly. Everybody wants to be being a profession that has that passion and that drive, and so it resonates. Yeah. And that hasn't been a logical win. Like it's been like you need to care for all of these, all of these distinct groups. I need to be able to see them in it. And I guess if the world had unlimited budget, maybe you'd do that. But creativity really thrives with constraint. Yeah. And we've seen that be really, really true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it all kind of goes back to storytelling and, connecting that with the consumer insights that you mentioned before too. But I think, when you're going through that storytelling process, you're drawing emotion, and that creates the connectivity and the affinity for these brands. And it's relatable. It's that human connection that we have to be very conscious of all the time as marketers. So, cool. So another thing, and this has been a big topic at South by, and I think the last few years, just again with the changing kind of how we're all consuming content and changing consumer behaviors, live events, sports, festivals, all the things, and real-time marketing opportunities have become much more critical than in past. So, how is AT&T kind of adapting to that changing environment and getting involved in those kind of spaces?
Yeah, we have really looked to be involved as vastly much more than a sponsor that just has a logo. Yeah. And instead, and we have an amazing sponsorship team. So I'm speaking about some of their work, and love to have them here being interviewed. But we look for places where there's a reason for us being there from a technology perspective. Okay. What we do with the Cowboys organization, not just at AT&T Stadium, but at their headquarters and their facilities and their hotels and their whole experience, the small city that they have built, is all about creating this amazing live fan experience where everybody in the audience is on, streaming, uploading, doing a whole variety of things. Like that is a really challenging test of any network. Yeah. How do you go from basically your maintenance personnel in a building to 100,000 people? Yeah. It's a fun challenge, and we do that all the time at stadiums around the world, at live events in various places, and then we really try and use that as a way to learn, and also as a case study of the types of things that we can do. Yeah. One of the things that I'm quite involved in is with our network for first responders called FirstNet. Okay. The federal government chose AT&T to build a network exclusively for first responders. Oh, wow. So that in any situation where you may think about the wildfires we just had early this year in Los Angeles, and all the commercial networks were clogged up. Okay. Even those that would say, oh, we're going to give a little special, priority service to first responders. It's kind of the equivalent of having like the HOV lane on a highway.
Okay. Okay.
But we've all been on those, and the HOV lane gets clogged too.
Yeah, it sure does.
What we have built as a public-private partnership with the government, FirstNet, it's the whole dedicated highway.
So it's an independent direct line.
It is absolute direct. It's all theirs, and that's a place where the technology, as I'm talking about in stadiums, helps us as we think about how all of a sudden in some rural place, LA is not your best example, other places in very rural places where you may not have the planning capacity on a commercial network to carry first responders and news crews and everyone trying to connect with their loved ones. FirstNet does that because it's a dedicated highway, and we've built that capacity.
Wow, that's really cool. I wasn't aware of that, and that's very powerful.
It's one of the most, like, it feels like like internally it is like it's a service mentality.
Yeah.
Many people in there talk about it as, we have a lot of veterans are part of that organization, and they talk about it as a continuation of their service. So it's a real special mission that I absolutely my favorite part of my job.
That's fantastic. I love it. You guys have such a unique opportunity, I think, AT&T, because like you have connectivity, devices, like all the things. So it like presents a lot of opportunity to integrate yourself in experiences.
Yeah.
But to your point, there's a lot of challenges logistically too. So, but I think that's probably an exciting thing to have at your disposal.
As marketers, we're always like, that sounds really hard.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. How can we figure this out? Right.
Great. So I think just kind of like wrap it up, like, as we kind of think about, the future of marketing, like your crystal ball kind of point of view, like, but more so not the stuff that may be scary, but like what you're kind of being drawn to, or you're really excited about the future for marketing, and like where do you see that particularly for an opportunity for brands too? Yeah,
I think the obvious scary one is how technology and bots are quickly becoming almost indistinguishable replacements for a lot of the things that we do in our craft. And my optimistic way of looking at that is it's like a lot of other tech. There's a lot of hype today for AI, but it's a technology like many others that had hype cycles that are going to be part of how we work.
Yeah.
So I think embrace it, but what we need to maintain as marketers is that human interaction that can't be fully replaced even by a bot. So we're using it, and it's quickly helping us get research and theses and things that we want to go and explore further. But it's that like looking your customer into the eye, or interacting, going to an event, and like that, whatever your segment is, and really understanding like what are you observing, like that. AI can help us get and identify those places, but you've got to go and experience that. You've got to be able to have that interaction, and that's the kind of work that I'm excited to do over the next decade or so.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really exciting. Yeah, it really is like kind of the marriage of both, and that's kind of like the key to success, I guess. So, well, John, this was awesome. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Some really great insights, and look forward to following your work as we go forward.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, take care.